Hello, everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and record this lecture. I think I announced it, but I'm not positive. So I'm going to go ahead and record this lecture because of a prior commitment that I have on this coming Thursday on the 8th. And rather than just canceling class entirely, I'm going to use this whole Microsoft Teams online education to our advantage so that we can still cover some material. I probably won't cover as much as I would have in class, maybe because I don't get the questions and answer time that I would normally get with you guys having the chat and all that stuff. But a couple of things that I wanted to go ahead and point out and make sure we covered is one, I'm going to talk about the assignment that was just posted today. Today I'm recording this on Saturday, on the 3rd of April. So I posted an assignment, and I want to explain. I'm going to just go through that, explain a couple things there, and then two, I also want to go through abstract classes. Now I know according to the syllabus we should be doing testing this week, and under normal conditions I would have continued with that. I would have done testing, but I feel so strongly about testing. It's kind of my thing. It's kind of what's the phrase? My jam. I don't know. I'm too old to be using phrases like that, right? But testing is something that is very important to me. I believe that as computer developers, as computer programmers, and as software developers, a lot of times we overlook testing. We overlook it because it's not, one, it's not fun. Two, we have the wrong idea about what testing's purpose is, and so when testing is done well, when testing is done well, we sometimes get really upset as programmers. But so that's why I like to talk about it, because of how important it is. Because just because something isn't fun, just because something isn't flashy, just because something isn't, the buzzword that everybody wants to talk about, like artificial intelligence or big data or cloud or things like that, doesn't mean that it's not important. And testing is super important, and so that's why I want to put it off until the next week when I will be back, and we will do a live lecture because it is that important. So we're going to do abstract classes and interfaces today instead. We'll at least introduce them. We may not get through all of that, but anyway, okay. So first things first, let's talk about assignment 2. All right. So assignment 2 due Monday, 19th of April. So you only got 2 weeks. I did this based on when the tentative midterm is probably going to be. If there's a midterm announcement that kind of is able to shift this date, we'll deal with that. Okay, but for this, I wanted to set the due date so that we would have time to get it in before the midterm. Okay. So just like before, I need you to give me a file, assignment 02 student number.java. You also need to do screenshots of your progress. Now, ideally, so assignment 2, first compile, this might be the same screenshot that you gave me as your last compile from the previous assignment. For many of you, for all of you, what I hope you do is I hope you don't start from the beginning. I hope you don't go back and try to rewrite all these classes all over again, but instead that you take the time to kind of just modify the existing classes. Take your assignment 1 and modify the classes to fit the new requirements. Okay. But the same screenshots as before. I need to have these different so that you can understand that we are interested not only in the final product. The code is not the only important thing. In addition to the code, we want you to understand that there's a process of development of how we get from point A to B. Okay. All right. So we're going to add a new class called department. So before, department was just a string for each, person belonged to a department, course belonged to a department. Now we want to have a department class because we want to know who the chair of the department is. right? So where are we going to put that requirement for the 3 to 4 characters of the ID? We're going to put that right there in the department class. All right. The constructor will only take the ID and the name as a parameter. ID is that 3 to 4 characters. Name. So ID would be like CSE. Name would be computer engineering. Okay. Now the constructor does not take a chair, and the reason for that is what we'll see below is that the chair will be a teacher who belongs to the department. And the reason why we can't create the department and give it a chair at the same time is because the teacher needs to belong to the department. And if it doesn't exist yet, if the department doesn't exist yet, we can't check that, right? Okay. So, so the constructor will only take ID and name, same as normal, get and set ID. Now we can set the chair. We're going to pass it a teacher object, and if the teacher is not in the department, so in other words, if let's say, for example, we're trying to set the chair of the CSE department, but the teacher that we pass it belongs to the math department, this is going to raise an exception. This is going to throw an exception, a special exception. Notice this does not exist. This is not an exception that already exists. You will create this exception. Okay, you will create this exception class. All right, using the examples from the lecture examples. Okay, so it'll be called the department mismatch exception if the teacher is not in that department. Okay. Course, so a few changes. Department will no longer be a string. It's going to be a department. All right. And we're going to have a teacher that is assigned to the course. Okay. All right. So the course will have a teacher. Right. The constructor will take the department number, title, AKTC, and teacher now. So we have to pass it a teacher object. If the teacher and the course are not in the same department, then we will throw a department mismatch exception. Now there's going to be 2 versions of the department mismatch exception, and we'll talk about that when we get down below. Okay. We can get and set teacher, same thing. One thing I guess I didn't put in here, anytime that we do something that is not valid, like ID, right? Whether we do it in the constructor or in the set, either way, if we do something valid, the same thing should occur. So in this case, notice I didn't give you a special exception to write for here. What that means is do the same thing that you were supposed to do based on your student number, even or odd. Do the same thing that you did for assignment 1. Okay, so if for assignment 1 you gave a default value, or in the case of set ID, let me go ahead and say this. In the constructor, if your student number was, if you were supposed to give it a default value, do that in the constructor. In the set, just don't change it. Okay, just leave it whatever it was if they pass a default of an invalid value. Okay. If in the previous assignment, for either the constructor or the set, if you were supposed to generate a runtime error of some kind, you should continue to do that. Okay, so you shouldn't have to change that code. You can if you want, because you could just throw a random runtime exception if you want to now, or you can leave it as it was if what you had before was correct. All right. Okay, so again, so if we try to put a teacher into the course that's not the same department, we're going to raise or throw a department mismatch exception. Okay. Course code is going to return the department ID and the number with a space like this, right? Okay. Person is now going to have a department object instead of a string. All right, same as before, right? We're going to take the name, email ID, and department, same as before. Okay. The teacher has no change in attributes. All right. There's a few changes to teacher though. So we do have, oh, gosh, that is a misspelled word right there, big time. Okay. we are going to override the set department. So there's a set department method here in the person class. Oh, one thing I want to note, person is abstract. You need to make person an abstract class. We'll talk about that today. Okay. The override the set department method. We need to check to make sure that the teacher is not the chair of the current department that they're in, right? So let's say that we wanted to move, let's say Meli Hoja is the department chair for the CSE department. And if we try to move him to the math department, right, then what does that mean? That means that the CSE department would then have a department chair that's not in their department. Right? So we can't have that. So we need to go to the CSE department and set its chair to null before assigning our current teacher, Meli Hojan, in my example, to his new department. Okay. So first things first, go to the current department, set their chair to null. They don't have a chair anymore. Then move Meli to his new department. Then move the teacher to the new department. Okay. We want to get rid of this set rank method. That set rank method, you know what we just realized is people could go around changing from anything to any other thing, and that's not okay. So what we want to do is we want to only promote and demote now. So we want to have them start at a certain rank, and then if we promote them, they go up. If we demote them, they go down. Okay. If promoting or demoting puts us into a bad rank situation, an invalid rank, or if the constructor, I guess I could put this right here. If the constructor gives us an invalid rank, we need to raise an invalid rank exception. Okay. We've added a new title, lecturer, to our list. So now if rank is 1, they need to give the get title method needs to return lecturer as the string, and all these others as well. No other changes to the other methods. Okay. Student, we're going to remove the AKTC as a part of the constructor and as an attribute, because we don't want to just have them given, we don't want to just set their AKTC. We want to know based on the courses that they've passed, what is their AKTC. Okay, so we don't have that in the constructor anymore. We remove these two. Notice we're removing past course because we're going to replace it with add course. Okay, and we'll get to that in just a second. But AKTC get AKTC is going to tell me all of the students' AKTC that they've earned based on the past courses. Get attempted AKTC will tell me all of the courses that they have taken, even the ones that they've failed. Okay. We're going to add a course. We're going to pass a course object and a grade. So now we're going to see which courses have the student passed and which have they not, right? If the course has already been taken, we want to replace the existing grade. I know this isn't exactly like what you would have here at this university, where you would, if you took CSE 102 2 years ago and then you're taking it today, then you would kind of get both grades on your transcript. I get that. For simplicity, we're not going to keep track of every time that they've taken the course. Only the most recent time is the grade that they're going to get. Okay, so it just replaces it. Okay, just takes that grade and replaces it already. Okay, if the grade is negative or greater than 100, if the grade passed here is negative or greater than 100, we will raise an invalid grade exception. Okay, course result, we're going to say, hey, how did the student do in a certain course? So we'll pass a course object, and we will return a string passed, conditionally passed, or failed based on the result. So if the grade for the course that's being passed is, let's take an example, 75, passed is what would get returned. Okay, it's just this last column here is what we're interested in. Whoa, what is that? Just this last column here is what we're interested in. Okay, if the course has not been taken, if we never gave it an add course thing, if it's, you know, we're giving a random course, right? There's no course that the student has taken, then we want to raise a course not found exception. We weren't able to find the course for that student. We want to calculate the GPA based on the courses that they have taken and passed, and the ones that they have not taken and passed. So we calculate their total GPA points based on these different courses. So if a student takes 2 courses and gets an AA for one of them, let's say there's the same AKTC, gets a 4.0 for one of an AA for one of them and a BB for another one, then what they would get for their GPA would be a 3.5, right? The middle of the two. 4 plus 3 divided by 7, right? If they are the same AKTC. Obviously, if they're not the same AKTC, then we got to calculate based on that. Okay. We want to add to their toString. We want to change their toString a little bit. We want to add their GPA to the toString method. Okay. Grad student, right? There's oh, I need to take that out. That shouldn't be there. Grad students should not have AKTC. Sorry, I'll have to change that. Okay, so a constructor that takes the name, email, ID, and department and thesis, just same as before. We're just taking the AKTC out. Okay. However, their course result will need to be, you'll need to override it from the student class because they have a different set of circumstances for their grade. And if you look at the university, this is all based on our university's tables, by the way. Okay. Same as before, if the course has not been taken, raises course not found exception, and the toString method takes from the parent. Okay. So that's the different classes, some of the changes made there. Custom exceptions all must inherit from the runtime exception class. Okay. Some of the different ones here: course not found exception. Student and course we need to pass. And if the course is not found, we should say course not found exception. Student ID has not yet taken course ID. All right. Department mismatch exception, because there's 2 different ways. There's 2 different ways that a department mismatch could happen. Being the chair, we're trying to make the chair a teacher who's not in that department, and the other option is we're trying to make a teacher to a course and they are not in the same department. All right. One option for a constructor would be to take a course and person parameter, and that sets department to null. This would be we're trying to assign a person to a course, assign a teacher to a course, and the department, the course, right? And they are not in the same department. The other option is take the department and the person, because we're trying to set this person as the chair of the department, but this person is not in that department. Okay. If the course is null, meaning department and person were the mismatch, right? Then we say they can't be the chair. That can't be a possibility, right? Because they are currently assigned to this department, this other department instead. The other possibility, course is not null, meaning we did give a course value. Department mismatch, person ID cannot teach a certain course because they are assigned to this other department. Okay. And then invalid grade exception, pretty self-explanatory. We pass it a double parameter for grade, and invalid grade exception, this is what it is. And invalid rank, same as invalid. That should not be double, that should be int. Man, I got a few changes I gotta make. Okay. All right, so watch this. Watch this lecture. Watch this video for explanation. All right. Now, again, just like before, your program does not require a main method, but you are responsible for the 6 classes and 4 exceptions as described. Here's some example here where we created a student and some courses. We added the courses to that student with some different grades, and we saw what their AKTC, what they earn. They've only earned 6 because they didn't pass this second class. Attempted AKTC is 10 though, because they attempted 2 different courses, right? And their GPA then is 1.8 because 3 points for the 6 AKTC class, 0 points for the 4 AKTC class. So you take 18, which is the points they've earned, divide by 10, and you get 1.8. Okay. Here's another example of an exception that ends up happening, and the reason for this, notice I didn't make a big change, but I created a second department, right? And I tried to take a course and put it in that second department, but put a teacher of the first department into it, and it says, no, you can't do that. Department mismatch exception. Joseph Leday cannot teach CSE 2-102 because here, and if you would see off the end over here, because he or she is currently assigned to CSE. Okay. All right. Everything else, same as before. That Thursday, the 22nd of April, we will have a quiz. And just like before, hopefully this one goes much more smoothly than the one before. And you will be quizzed on the material from this assignment, your understanding of it. All right. Okay, so let me go ahead and stop sharing the screen. And how long has that been? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop the recording right now so that I can post that video, this video separately to say this was the assignment description discussion.